Hey team, welcome back. Today I have with me Blaine, Dating by Blaine. You may well have seen her out and about. I've certainly seen her on Chris Williamson's podcast. Blaine has coached well over 4,000 men. She's been featured in Forbes, featured in the New York Journal, and has plenty of experience with helping guys build more chemistry and actually learn how to flirt with women. Blaine, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Yes, my pleasure. We were just talking before the show that it wasn't that long ago I became single, just about 18 months ago, and I entered the mystics of the dating world in 2023 it was. What was interesting for me was coming into the dating world as essentially a high-performing guy and trying to figure out what the fuck I then wanted from meeting women and
Yeah.
going on dates. When you're coaching guys, how do you start off with this?
Yeah. So obviously, every guy comes to me from a different place, a different starting point. They have oftentimes different struggles. They maybe, have had different past experiences, whether it's like coming out of a relationship, never had a relationship. But ultimately, most guys want the same end goal. They want to feel confident with women and they want to feel like they have quality options. And the recipe to get them from that point A, no matter where it is, to that point B is somewhat the same. Yeah, you have to focus on different things. Different people have different struggles, but ultimately you need the same skill set. And one of those really important things, which you just touched on, is understanding and identifying what you want in a partner. Because who you want to attract and who is going to be compatible with you long term affects how you're going to approach dating. It also affects where you need to be and how you need to market yourself and how you need to meet women to get to that goal. So identifying that is often a first step in creating a path forward.
Yeah, okay. How does he go about identifying that? That's, logical question.
Yeah. So, really thinking about who you're going to be compatible with. So, a lot of guys think or are attracted to and end up pursuing women because they're beautiful. They see a woman at the gym. She looks good in yoga pants. Yes, I'm going to pursue her. I'm going to do whatever it takes to be with her. I want to sleep with her. I want to date her. She's going to look really good on my arm. But ultimately, that is not what is going to make a successful long-term relationship. It doesn't mean it won't, but
Yeah.
it's also not the building blocks of whether or not you're a good fit. So when you're looking for whether or not somebody is a good fit, you want to think about values. Do you share like big picture values? Do you enjoy spending time together because you enjoy the same hobbies and doing the same things? It doesn't mean you have to do everything together or like all of the same things. But if you're super outdoorsy and love to go camping and spend time outside, and she's spending most of her time at the nail salon and going shopping, that's probably not setting you up for long-term compatibility.
Yeah.
So really looking at whether or not the fit is there early on is something I consistently see guys get wrong or just like not even really dissect or think about.
Yeah, because I think that can be sometimes, particularly if you're new onto the dating scene or you're coming out of a marriage like I was, and then you're going back into the dating scene, and then you're with a woman, it can be, there's quite a lot going on in our heads.
Yeah.
And then, and then to be also analyzing if they're a fit. And I know for a lot of guys, and this was massively for me, I suppose, before I started doing so much personal development and men's work, is that I wouldn't even think about that. It would
Yeah.
be, hey, she's good looking. We get along. We have a laugh.
Can I get her to like me?
Yes. Can I get her to like me? Yeah, like an achievement.
Totally. And that's also ultimately a turnoff to women. If you just seem like you are blindly pursuing them and not ultimately looking at the whole picture and being honest with yourself, that makes you come across as needy or depending on the intensity of it, even desperate. Whereas if you are thinking, okay, like 1/3 of my effort going on this date or meeting this woman is to just determine whether or not she actually deserves me and whether she fits well into my life, that really flips the script and can keep some of the power in your hands as opposed to giving all of the power to her and basically just saying like, will you have me?
Yes.
That is what sets you up for the downward spiral of rejection or confidence hits. Is if you are just blatantly pursuing women because they're attractive and they aren't a good fit, the likelihood of it actually working out is much lower. So whether she rejects you at the first conversation because she recognizes you have nothing in common, or whether it's down the road, it's not going to be a good thing for you if you have just gone into it wanting her to want you because she's attractive, and not because it makes sense. The relationship makes sense.
Yeah. Do you know what the other side of this is? Is sometimes it's not just about, sometimes actually, and this is very often with a lot of guys I know that I work with, and I definitely fell into this character trait for a long time, as like just being a fucking nice guy.
Yeah.
And like, that nice guy actually putting women on pedestals.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than like her actually being a trophy, it'd be like, oh well, how can I get her to like me and accept me and validate me,
Mm-hmm.
and be just, I just want her to like me because I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Do you see that with the guys that you coach?
Often. Yeah. A lot of the guys I work with self-identify as quote nice guys. And when you said like, you put her on a pedestal, if she's on a pedestal, she has nothing to do but look down on you. Think about that. Like, I think that's a really easy way to remember. If you're constantly idolizing her or thinking, and obviously, yes, everyone wants to date somebody that they're excited about and they value their opinion and they think they're attractive, but you need to value yourself at that same level. If you view her as drastically higher status than you, higher quality than you, more attractive than you, then you are setting yourself up to be looked down upon. And that doesn't mean don't treat her well, but it means you need to have your own boundaries. You need to have your own self-respect. You should be prioritizing yourself and putting yourself first until you're in a relationship. Of course, sometimes when you're in a relationship, you make sacrifices for the other person. You prioritize the relationship above your individual self. But prior to that point, it is not appropriate to be prioritizing somebody else over yourself. And that can come out in really small interactions, but women pick up on that.
Mm, yeah. And we know that, and I know that, and I coach on that. I'm like, guys, their intuition is 10x ours. Know this. That they know what we're feeling before we fucking know what we're feeling.
And I think that's underappreciated. Women
Yeah.
truly have a sixth sense. So if you are not confident or you are needy, even if you're able to put a mask on and kind of, fake it at first, it is likely still going to show through because women's intuition and just ability to be perceptive on those qualities is really high. And they might not even consciously be, oh, this guy is needy or this guy lacks confidence. So there's going to be something about you that they don't find attractive, and it's going to stem from that.
Yeah. Do you say like me, for example, right, I came out of a marriage 18 months ago, and when you're working with guys who have been in existing relationships and they've broken down for whatever reason, do you tap into, hey, like what went on historically for you? And like, where can you learn from that not to go and make the wrong choice and pick wrongly again?
Yeah, a bit. And more so even just looking towards like how do we identify what you want in the future? And part of that is like, okay, what has historically not liked in the past? That has to play into part of it. A
Yeah.
lot of the men, not all of the men I work with who are divorced, but so I have like sort of like two buckets of clients I oftentimes see. I have lovingly called the one bucket the engineer. Oftentimes falls into the nice guy bucket. May or may not actually be an engineer, but usually works in a technical field, is successful professionally, has interesting hobbies, has good friends, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of experience with women. That's usually nice guy bucket.
Mm.
And that's like, okay, how do I meet more women? How do I get in relationships? The second bucket is the divorcee. Been in a relationship or been married for a long time, didn't expect to be single again, and now he finds himself single and it's like, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do? That client oftentimes has been married, even if he could have been married for 20, 25 years. So he's coming out of that. And it's not what didn't work in the past isn't necessarily as relevant as like, okay, what does your future look like? What do you want your future to look like? So much changes in 15, 20, 25 years that almost like who you dated before that is irrelevant. Maybe why your relationship didn't work is relevant. But maybe you just grew apart too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. For don't want to start it. Whether let's start with this, and then we'll go into the dating bit because like let's start from the word go. Let's just say I'm single. Then how do I go about meeting women? So there's loads of apps, right?
Yeah.
But the apps are the apps, and they're not the optimal way.
Yeah.
What's
You
best
have
way?
two buckets. You have like your online strategy and you have your offline. A mistake I see so many men make is putting a lot of emphasis into online dating and then either completely ignoring or putting very little effort into offline dating. And that should be reversed. Online dating, sure, it's a necessary evil. I can make any man the best possible dating profile for him that he could possibly have and put his best foot forward there. But even still, no more than 20% of your overall dating effort should really be focused online. So much of whether you are successful or not online is just out of your control.
Yeah,
Whereas when you're dating offline and meeting women in person, that is 100% in your control. And the more effort you put in, the better you get at it, the better results you are going to get. And
yeah,
that looks different for everybody. And the strategy around where you should be spending your time, how you should be approaching women definitely is different depending on the man and depending on who he's looking to attract and where he lives and any number of factors. But ultimately, you have more control over the outcome and if you get good at it, going to get better results focusing your effort offline.
yeah. Okay, so effort offline, and then what's like tactics on um approaching then in person?
So one of the things I see men getting wrong constantly when it comes to offline is that they are spending time at bars and clubs, and that's where they think that they should meet women. When the reality is those are very hard places to meet women. It's very hard to stand out, especially if you're not like the typical tall, good-looking, charismatic, outgoing guy. If that's you, maybe that you can leverage that as a place to meet women. But even still, even if you do fall into that category, the type of women who are consistently hanging out at bars and clubs are big generalization here, but are typically going to be less likely to be looking for or ready for a stable, mature relationship. And then third, and arguably most importantly, what do you have in common with those women? There is no qualifying activity or feature about being at a bar or club that says, oh, we share a value or we have this thing in common, except maybe partying. And I wouldn't say, in my experience, personally and professionally, partying is a good basis for a relationship.
No.
Identifying the best places for you personally to meet women is step one when you start thinking about, okay, how can I meet more women in person? And that's going to be specific to each individual guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so say it's like you're interested in the gym or you're interested in sports and you meet someone there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then here's one that so now you're getting into the dating. This was an interesting one for me actually because I like to go deep. I'd much rather deep, meaningful conversations rather than stick with surface level because that's I think where I was fucked up before is it was just way too surface and then got deeper or not as deep as I wanted to, just too far into a relationship. So
Mhm.
in terms of actually going deeper in the dating scene on dates, is that something you do on date one or not?
It actually there's a happy balance here. I actually think forcing it and going too deep too soon isn't a great strategy either. You don't want to always stay completely surface level, but sometimes going too deep too soon, getting like deep into the hard-hitting questions early on, you're skipping over a lot of the fun and the flirty and the relationship building that I think is also very important. You need to
Sure.
be able to have fun with your partner. You need to be able to flirt whether it's the first or the 40th date, you want to be silly and, have those fun, flirty dynamics. And if you're not able to do that, that is arguably as bad in the long run as not being able to go deep. So, in terms of appropriateness of advancing a relationship, there's a time and place to go deep, but I don't think rushing there to see if you're compatible on that level is necessarily the right call either.
Mm. Yeah. So it's a mix of the being playful, but
Yeah,
also
like
showing you got depth.
in my opinion, is a vibe check. We're here
Okay.
to have fun. Can we laugh? Can we smile? Do we have things in common to talk about? If that is a yes, check mark, okay, advance to the second date. You're building from there. Okay, now it's the second date. Is there some chemistry? Can you, insert some physical touch? Maybe there's a kiss or things go a little bit further on a second or third date. Like, how does that feel? Are we sexually and emotionally compatible? From there, you're building. Something that this isn't what you were asking about, but I think it's an important call out and relevant here is whether you want to keep the sort of different building blocks of a relationship around the same level. So physicality, emotional connection, and then, so you have like sexual connection, physical connection, emotional connection. You ideally are wanting all of those to build somewhat together. So if an emotional connection gets drastically out of sync from a physical connection, either because you have sex on the first date and you're not emotionally connected, or you're going so deep, but you haven't progressed things physically, a relationship tends to feel out of balance. And when
Yeah.
the emotional is more than the physical, that's when you might hear like, you're a really nice guy, but I just see you more as a friend. Or when physical goes really fast and the emotional connection isn't there, that's when like either party might just not see the relationship as having long-term compatibility or not taking it as seriously. So you want to keep these different important parts of a relationship foundations somewhat in sync as you develop.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like I know for the guys that I work with a lot of married guys, so we don't do like loads of dating and but it's still like relevant is that there's a lot of guys that are worried about bringing too much vulnerability or too much like emotional connection into it because they see it as a bit of a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that? How do you overcome that?
So again, it's all about pacing correctly. If you are super vulnerable on the first date, that's out of sync with the relationship you have built with this woman so far. But if you are progressing a relationship through the first few dates and you want to be like an onion, you want to be like peeling back layers, you're always giving a little bit more. Something I see men get wrong is they want to give it all up on the first date. They want to tell her everything. They want to show everything, all the good things about them, or even,
Yeah,
some of the vulnerable things about them because they've heard vulnerability is good. When the reality is you want to give it little by little. If you leave no mystery and you leave nothing to wonder or learn about, that's also unattractive. But being vulnerable, to your question, is something that is attractive to women, and it goes back to their intuition. If you're hiding something, or if you feel bad about something, like you're embarrassed about something from your past or something even in your present, women are going to pick up on that. So it's really important to do the self work that you feel confident and comfortable with this thing, whatever that thing is. And then if you're sharing it and you're sharing it in a way that's clear, concise, and confident, she's probably not going to have a problem with it. And the fact that you don't have a problem with it is going to be attractive.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real big one actually for
Mhm.
guys to have done their own work on their own healing for whatever they've been through to
Yeah,
then be okay with it in themselves.
absolutely. And I touch on that a bit in my teachings and in my courses, but I'm a dating coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm ultimately not like a healing coach. So if somebody has something that they really need to get over and like are struggling, whether it's, like in the form of anxiety or self-confidence or trauma from a past relationship, I'm so supportive of working, with a coach like yourself or with a therapist or with a psychologist to get that foundation to a place where then when I teach you the tactical aspects of dating, you're able to implement it in a way that is successful.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you're right because women can detect when you haven't sorted your shit out,
Yeah,
and then that's a big red flag for them.
definitely. And especially if you want a woman who has her shit together and has sorted
Sure.
shit out, she's going to see through it. If you're okay with a woman who's like doesn't have her shit together and isn't confident herself, then that's the type of woman you're going to attract if you're there. When guys say like people talk about like, oh, they're out of your level or he or she is out of their level. My response is often like, yeah, maybe they are, but you're in control of your level. You
Mm,
can up level yourself to attract higher quality people. You don't just have to settle for the people you're currently matching with or the current people you're currently meeting, if you feel like you're not impressed by them, look at yourself because you are going to attract somebody at roughly the same level of confidence, of neediness, of a physical attraction that you are. That's
Yeah.
just the reality of it. So
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
expecting like a 10 out of 10, but like if you're really honest with yourself, you're a 6 out of 10, you're probably gonna end up you're gonna be disappointed. So what can you do to level up to get better than a 6?
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on. And and many guys are delusional. It's to have that's like a perceived version of reality that they're they're out here at level 8 or 9, but actually it's just their delusional perception. It's actually more like a 4 or 5.
Yeah. And I think social media and dating apps has increased that because it at least has made people feel like, oh, there's all these really hot, attractive women. They're everywhere because you're seeing them on your phone because the three hottest women from every town have now 1 million Instagram followers. So you're actually seeing them and you're having this false perception that you have access to them and that therefore you deserve somebody like that. When the reality is like, okay, you're one of 100,000 or 1 million guys who are following that woman in her DMs or who are thirsting after her. Why you? Why is she going to pick you over everybody else?
Yeah.
It's not meant to be harsh. It's just meant to be eye opening in the reality of the situation. How are you going to distinguish yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's yeah, for the guys, this is absolutely about becoming your best version, not just to attract the woman, but also to keep her. Like if she's on a great level consciously, and she's growing and evolving consciously and emotionally and intellectually and so forth, you got to keep up your game to be able to keep the woman, not just attract her in the first place. It's easy for guys to put a couple of masks on and go and attract a woman.
Totally. And I think that's something that some of the old school dating advice, if I don't know how familiar you are with like the PUA or pickup artist community, they are more focused on how can you trick a woman or how can you
Yeah.
be perceived as high status and make her want you. But that doesn't last. If you're looking, and maybe you can trick a woman at a bar, maybe you can convince her that you're high status. But if you're not actually there, and like you said, if you're not growing and developing and truly living that life, it's not going to be long term successful. And the women who really have it together aren't going to fall for it.
No, absolutely not. I know that PUA stuff is boyish. It's boyish
Mhm.
behavior. It's immature. It's
Yeah.
immature masculine. And and to be honest, like that won't last for the man internally anyway, because it's be well against who he truly is and his authentic self. So he'll know deep down there's something immoral, and he'll always feel like he's going to be found out. Always, he's like, fucking hell,
Yeah.
I'm blagging this, and
Yeah.
that's uncomfortable.
Yeah. It doesn't lead to you feeling confident or happy or successful. Anytime you're pretending to be somebody you're not. And that's why some of my clients have, you know, come from the pickup artist community or have tried those methods because they are so popular online. And then when I talk to them, they say, it just didn't feel authentic to me. I left feeling like icky as opposed to feeling confident or stronger in myself. Where my advice and what I consistently hear from clients is like, oh, this makes sense. It's like, yes, this should make sense. This isn't rocket science. This isn't sorcery. This is psychology. It's evolutionary biology. It's you being your authentic self. And I package those things and I explain them in a way that is relates to tactical modern dating advice, but it's not revolutionary.
Yeah.
Women don't want anything new now than really they even did 100,000 years ago if you get it down to the bare bones. It just looks a little different in 2024.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And with dating, like guys getting into dating, and like earlier on, you alluded to about guys expressing way too much, way too early on. And just, I know what that can be. It's like uh, we all want love, and it's like guys are like fucking hell, she's amazing. I'm going to open up my heart, and that like the lover has no boundaries. And so it can be like full on and expressing everything. How would you coach guys around going too fast?
Yeah, yeah, that goes back to sort of like the onion I was talking about. You want to give it to her slowly. Boundaries are such an important part of dating because if you don't have boundaries, it shows that you don't respect yourself. So if you are willing to bend over backwards for somebody you barely know, that is not an attractive quality. Again, I was talking about evolutionary biology and taking it back hundreds of thousands of years. If you were the caveman who was willing to give up all your resources to anybody who asked, that's not the caveman I want to be cohabitating with. I want the
No.
caveman that goes out, gets shit done, you know, takes no prisoners, is going after what's going to be best for him and his family. And you can apply that. Obviously, like I said, it looks different today, but women are attracted to it's like when guys are like, girls like assholes. It's like, no, they don't like assholes, but there are certain traits that a perceived asshole has that are attractive. Prioritizing yourself, putting your success ahead of others if you don't know that. Again, it's all about where you're at in the relationship. Okay, she's your wife, she's your girlfriend. Yeah, you prioritize her first or the family unit first. But until you're to that point, prioritizing others makes you look actually weak.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows no boundaries, shows probably a lack of purpose and direction for yourself if you're willing to let others just encroach that super
Yeah,
fucking
same
easily.
with us. I remember, and this was like probably something subconscious that happened in my relationship really early on. I'm married now, but it was like my second or third date with my now husband. And I was caught up at a work event, so I was late, and so we kept having to like push the time. And so it's like 8 or 9 o'clock, and we were going to go to a place that was like a little bit of a drive. And he was like, you know what? It's getting late. Like I have to get up early for my workout. Let's just rain check. And that's an example of an appropriate boundary. He didn't know me. Why would he sacrifice his performance the next day at the gym or at work for some girl? Just because he was, yeah, of course, he was
Yeah.
excited about going on a date with me, but I'm just some girl. Even if she's, Miss America and really attractive, it is more attractive to her that you are prioritizing yourself than you're doing whatever she wants just because she's a hot girl. You don't know her
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And now,
sure.
it's like, if I needed a ride from the airport or something late at night, of course my husband is going to sacrifice, something in his life to help me because we do that for each other. That's a mutual commitment that we've made.
Yeah. So with guys sticking on the going too fast, guys going too fast and just like, fucking hell, this woman's beautiful. She's got everything I need. Whatever, she's the one. And in doing so, can then avoid seeing any form of red flag.
Mhm. Mhm.
How can men just be a little bit more attentive, or what do they need to look out for there?
Yeah, well, I think, you said thinking, "Oh, she's the one." It's like that is not an appropriate thought to have until you have known somebody for many months, probably. You
Yes.
know? So I have like a little in one of my courses, like a little scale about the appropriate level of investment, like per date. And then like just holding yourself to that because okay, if you're on 1 or 2 dates with someone, dates 1 or 2, it's appropriate to think, I'm excited about this person. I see hints of compatibility here. That's an appropriate level of investment. Not an appropriate level of investment is how can I get her to like me? Like she is the one.
Yeah.
She is perfect. Because if you don't to be in love with somebody or to think that somebody could have a future with you, you should be aware of their flaws and want that anyway. If you don't think this person has flaws, then you are way ahead of yourself because everybody has flaws. Nobody is perfect. So until you're aware, you've already uncovered what these flaws are, and then you still want to be with them, it is too soon to have any thoughts about truly even like exclusivity, definitely marriage, being in love with this person.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. Do you recommend guys like have their own like presets of non-negotiables? Is that
Yeah,
something you coach guys on?
absolutely. It's a really good sort of self-test, especially if you're getting back into dating. What are your must-haves what are your nice to haves and what are your I don't need this necessarily, but maybe it's something you told yourself you needed in the past. When I'm working with clients, I encourage them to think about those things. So like examples of good must haves, it's like maybe it's like kind to my children if you have kids. So like, okay, I need somebody who can be mothering and can be loving like that. That's a totally acceptable must have. Maybe a nice to have is like, I need someone who likes to go camping. Maybe you really like to go camping and that's something you'd like to do with a partner, but it's not a requirement. A must have might be that she likes to spend some time outdoors if that's something you're really into. But okay, camping would be a nice to have. And then an I don't need is maybe, she went to an Ivy League school, or she has brown hair, or she is shorter than me. Those might be things that you told yourself in the past that you needed, but ultimately aren't going to help you have a healthy long-term relationship, aren't going to be the things that lead to long-term success. So being able to look at those and throw them out the window can be really helpful for expanding the type of people you go on dates with early on.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that, 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 that trio there
And I
to be
think
able,
getting like writing those out
yeah.
and to really hold yourself accountable. Don't just be like, oh, I know what they are. Because then when you're going on dates with women or you even meet women, go back to that list. Okay, does she have my must haves? If not, then like probably not somebody you want to invest in, no matter how beautiful she is or how, drawn to her you're feeling. Because before you had those feelings, before your hormones and and you smelled her pheromones and were like, I can't get enough, you wrote that list from a place of consciousness. Okay, let's go back to it and see how it's holding up.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that women will test guys on dates and during a dating stage?
So I hear this from clients or like men online often, like, oh, it's like they call it like a shit test. And that's kind of a term that pickup artists actually use. And in my opinion, like a well adjusted, conscious, mature, confident woman is not running tests consciously, at least. She's
Yeah.
not like seeing, okay, how's he going to respond to this? But everything that you are doing in all of your interactions are feeding into how she perceives you. So it's not necessarily like going back to the date that I talked about, I wasn't testing my husband by pushing the date later and later to see if he was going to set a boundary. That's just something that naturally occurred. And at the time, I wasn't like, oh, he sets boundaries. That's attractive. That wasn't even going on in my head, but it was a data point that, oh, this person prioritizes their health and fitness and career. And those things are important to me, even in a subconscious level. So everything you're doing, every interaction you have, every boundary you set, she is picking up on. And sure, there might be some women who do play games and run tests. Most of like my clients and most of the guys I work with, they don't want to be with the type of woman who's going to be playing games.
No, for sure. How about if like not games, but then maybe because you mentioned like shit tests, like would be conscious. What if they're unconsciously doing things that may be a sabotaging behavior, and it's kind of a test, but they're not, that's unconsciously doing it? Like, do you find that guys come back to you and say, this is going on, fucking, how do I hold this?
Yeah. So I think if, for example, what comes to mind when you say like they're subconsciously sabotaging behavior, they might have like an avoidant attachment style. So
Yes,
like
that's what I'm
as
getting
you
at.
get closer, they're pushing back.
Yes.
Ultimately, my advice, especially because I'm really focusing on early on in relationships and early on in dating, is you're not going to be able to change somebody. They are either ready and they want to date you or they're not. Wrong time is the wrong person. So if they aren't at a place where they can commit and have done the work to be able to have a healthy relationship, you trying to fix that for them is probably going to be unsuccessful. If you're trying to convince her to be with you this early on, maybe it works at first, but is that something you really want in the long term? You're probably constantly going to be having that push and pull battle. So my advice is if you spot this early on, somebody who is, as you get closer, they pull back, and then you pull back, and then they get closer. They're
Yeah.
doing this cat and mouse or this breadcrumbing. is you try calling it out and having a mature conversation about it and being like, hey, depending on where you are, if you're a little further along, this is something I'm noticing. Like, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about it? But short of that, I would say it's really, you can't change somebody. It's not your place to try and fix her. And I would move on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not your responsibility to sort someone else's shit.
And you can't. You could
No.
put all of the time and all of the effort, and you're probably not going to be able to change them drastically. People don't change that much. You
Mm.
can expect maybe like a 5 or 10% change from where they're at, even if they say they're working on something. But drastically more than that is pretty uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good for guys to be aware of attachment styles, and for themselves, and also to be able to spot that in others.
Totally. I've had clients, I recommend reading the book Attached. It's the
Yes.
book kind of about attachment styles. And I've had clients be like, some people don't find it that revolutionary. Maybe they already kind of intuitively know this stuff. But I've also had clients be like, the book changed my life. My God, it told me so much about why my past relationships didn't work and about
Yeah.
myself. It's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, it is. It's well worth reading. It's me knowing those concepts did it changed my life. I was like, oh wow, okay, right now I can see what I've got going on, and I can actually be aware of it when it's coming up. I'm like, huh, that's that's where I've got that little attachment style. Okay, well, let me just be vocal about this rather than just fucking ignore it because she knows anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so going further along in the dating, so you're dating a woman. What's like getting into the relationship? What are you advising guys around that?
Like how to or
Yeah, how to, and then yeah, just and things to like gearing up to getting into a relationship. So you're just taking it from dating into a little bit something more serious. Is there things that you're saying like you're pointing out to guys to be wary of, or just to, or how they should go about doing that?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a bit already because it's such an important part is the not rushing it.
Mm,
When a guy is rushing into a relationship, again, it is signaling to this woman he doesn't have a lot of options. What does that signal if you're not wanting to know more about her before you get in a relationship? It signals that you don't necessarily have boundaries, that you don't necessarily think that highly of yourself, that you don't have other options. Everyone's attracted to somebody with options. If you go to a restaurant and there's no one else there, at least my first opinion is like, what does everyone else know that I don't know? I don't want to eat here. Then you see a restaurant that has a line and a wait list, you're like, I want to go there. That must be really good. It's the same thing with dating. So it's not that you want to like flash to someone that you're dating that you have all these other options. That would be like the playing games and sort of like the pickup artist method is intentionally letting them know that. But if you're just the type of guy who has options and therefore you are dating multiple women early on, that is going to, again, she's going to intuitively pick up on that and that's going to be attractive. You shouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone until you're pretty certain that this person, all of the things I previously talked about, shares your values, has your must haves. That could take some time to figure out. So when you push for it earlier than that, it tends to push the woman, or at least the type of woman who also has a lot of options, away.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And do you find that on the dating scene that both men and women are dating lots of people at the same time?
It depends on the person. I certainly have clients that are really successful and could be dating multiple people at once, but they just don't have the time for that. And
Yeah,
they focus on one person at a time. And that's okay because still the concept is there. They have the skills, they have the tools to attract people. And then there's people who have more free time and are going on dates with multiple people. I personally think the sweet spot early on is you should like if you're going on a second date with someone and you really liked the first date, you shouldn't be canceling other first dates that you have. It is absolutely okay to be going out with 2 or 3 people all at the same time when if you're like 5 dates or something. Like that should be expected from both parties and exclusivity shouldn't be expected in either direction until it's been explicitly talked about and agreed upon. So really until then, my advice is keep meeting people, keep dating. You might not be, you might not be like at a fifth date stage with 2 different women, but even if you've been on 5 dates with one woman, if you're not exclusive, then you shouldn't be pulling back on meeting new people and, being engaging and even approaching women. Like, keep that up because that's going to set you up to be in a place where you act like you have a lot of options because you literally do.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And at the start, we talked about building chemistry and flirting. I fell into this, right? When I was in my marriage, I got so serious with building my first business. I was just fucking intense, serious guy. And then so when I came out of that relationship, I was still an intense, serious guy. Then going into dating, I was like, oh, this is interesting because it's like bringing back that playful side, that
Hmm.
kind of the childish side, and having a bit of fun and flirting and not just being so intense and serious all the time. I know for a lot of the guys that I work with, they're professional guys. They're high flyers in their careers. They're running businesses. They're intense. They're highly intellectual. How are they? How can they bring back flirting and playfulness into
Yeah,
the
and that's
dating?
something I see all the time, and that's definitely a problem. It's like they're coming to the date, they're coming from work, so they're coming and they're really good at forming these intellectual connections, but they aren't forming that emotional and sexual connection. So they are coming in with problem solving mode, not feeling mode. And so rather than, coming there's sort of two parts to this. There's like the emotional side of it, which like you want to focus more on creating emotional connections in addition to intellectual connections. And then you also want to focus on creating the sexual connection, which often comes down to physicality. So paying attention to in being physical on a date is important. A date without any physical touch is a business meeting.
Yeah,
If you aren't touching her hand, helping her with her jacket, guiding her to her chair with her lower back, she's gonna feel like, and then also you're coming in with like an intense attitude and asking all these questions and a real intellectual presence. She's gonna leave there and she might be like, oh wow, that guy's successful and intellectual, but I just didn't feel a romantic spark. So
yeah,
making sure you set the stage physically is really important. And then also softening the conversation. So not always be like, if you're coming from work, like you might be a great manager at work and you're in problem solving mode and you're looking for solutions and you're giving ideas. But she's telling you about how her boss is a dick or she's like going through something challenging. She's probably not looking for a solution from you. She's looking for empathy. She's looking for understanding. She's looking for like, oh, I hear you, maybe relating to something that happened in your life. Don't consistently just go into problem solving mode. And that's something I see a lot of my really smart, really successful intellectual clients doing on dates.
for sure. Particularly if they're business owners or high flyers in careers, it's because they're used to operationalizing and fixing. And
And it's probably,
naturally, that
yeah.
can go into how you pick as well, because you could pick a woman that you subconsciously are going to fix. They're
Hmm.
fixers.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, problem.
Yeah. And that goes into, looking at those nice to haves and must haves and being really honest with yourself about why you're attracted to her and whether or not it's a fit can help you ideally avoid like picking the fixer because you know it's something that you're good at.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. That actually took someone else to highlight that to me. They were like, Pete, you're good at building businesses. This is what you're doing that. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
was just someone
But-
else to articulate it. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that often with my clients because the same thing. They're successful in their careers, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're really good at doing this one thing. And then they expect it to translate to dating and it doesn't in the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll also use what you said there earlier, if like she has an issue and she's discussing it, and then the guys are going, hey, look, I've got the answer. Let me fix it for you.
Yeah.
Like, guys are like, she's going to fucking love me because I got all the answers. No, she just wants to be heard and just voice it, not for you, unless she's asking for a solution.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or, you can say like, you can empathize and then you can say like, are, I think a little further along in a relationship, it's more appropriate. Like, are you looking for empathy or are you looking for a solution? You can ask that.
Yeah,
And you might just say, I'm just looking for empathy. Like, just, I'm
yeah,
looking to be heard.
yeah. That absolutely. Like, I've had to really lean into that and go because being a prehistoric fixer, I have to like because I'm dating at the moment, and I have to catch myself and like, oh, Pete, ask her, hey, like, what is he just you want a solution or just to be heard right now and just to voice this out? Let me know, because otherwise I'll jump into trying to solve this.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good catch, and it's a good thing to ask yourself.
Yeah, it's having that self-awareness. Blaine, talk to me about matchmaking.
Yeah, so it's something that I've recently started working on in a bigger capacity in my business. I've always sort of done matchmaking on the side, especially for my best clients who live in places where I know women or have a network, but it's something I'm doing more officially now. I have some matchmakers on my team, and it's going really well. It's a tool that, I always tell guys, if you have problems getting past the first date or getting past the first few dates, matchmaking isn't for you. Then you're
Right.
just getting paid to get rejected more. You need to get your ducks in order, get this really strong foundation, which is what I help guys do through my coaching and courses. Then once you're there, like if you are really busy, you're this high flying guy, you're an entrepreneur, you don't have time to go out and meet women necessarily, or you don't want to waste time on dating apps. That's where matchmaking can be really successful. And so we're working in most major cities right now. And yeah, VIP high end matchmaking. We're setting guys up with the type of women they're looking for. We go out and find them, we get them on a date. It's been really successful so far.
Wow, yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Are you going to bring that to London?
Actually, and we have any big city we're pretty successful in. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I know there's like, I got so many clients that are in London, and they're busy.
yeah,
And these guys, because they go through the work that we do, like they are very in their essential masculine leadership. They're very conscious guys,
love
so they
that.
have their shit together.
Yeah.
And it's now just like, hey, we just need to find some time for you to meet amazing women.
Yeah, we'll send them my way. We can cut out the time up front of finding the woman. It's just they'll just have to, show up for the date, be their conscious masculine self, and we'll leave the rest up to them.
Nice. Blaine, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Dating by Blaine, datingbyblaine.com. You're interested in working with me, you're interested in matchmaking, I have an apply form there. It takes less than 60 seconds, and I'd love to talk.
Cool. Thank you so much. And I'll link you as well. Team, guys, listening, watching, look in the comments. The links will be there too. Blaine, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Team, speak to you soon. Speak to you next week on the pod. Hey guys, almost forgot. Check out heroicman.com, the website. If you want to join Heroic Man's membership, you can just do that immediately on there. Super easy. Or if you want to apply to join the Awaken Man program and go deeper, you can do that there too. Cheers, men. See you next week.